spread his wings wide as he glided through the darkness of space. The stars stretched around him like tiny points of light in an endless ocean. His scales caught the distant glow of a red sun, making them shine with colors that shifted from deep purple to brilliant blue. He had been flying patrol for 3 days now, watching over the neutral zone between human territory and the outer systems. They had always been guardians. For thousands of years, his people had protected the space lanes and kept peace between the younger species. Took pride in his duty. His wings could carry him faster than most ships. His eyes could spot danger from millions of miles away. His scales were harder than the hull of any vessel he had ever seen. But lately, the patrols had become dangerous. Humans had expanded into regions they did not understand. They built colonies on worlds without asking permission. They mined asteroids that belonged to other species. And worst of all, they shot first and asked questions later. Had lost 3 nestmates to human hunters. They had been young, barely old enough to fly between the stars. The humans had tracked them, trapped them, and killed them for their scales. The scales were worth a fortune on the black market. Had found what remained of his friends floating in the void. The memory still burned in his mind like acid. He spotted the ship on his sensors before he saw it with his eyes. It was a human military vessel, sleek and dark, with weapons pods along its sides. The ship was called the Nighthawk according to the identification signal it broadcast. Changed his course to intercept it. He needed to know why it was here in neutral space. As he approached, he folded his wings partway to slow down. He activated his communication organ, the special structure in his throat that could broadcast signals across multiple frequencies. He sent the standard peaceful greeting, the one that every spacefaring species recognized. He wanted them to know he meant no harm. The Nighthawk did not respond with words. Instead, its weapon systems came online. Saw the energy signatures bloom across his senses. He tried to signal again, this time with more urgency. He was a sentinel, a guardian, not a threat. The first plasma bolt missed him by less than 100 feet. The second one clipped his right wing, burning through the thin membrane between the supporting bones. Roared in pain and anger. He dove away from the ship, trying to escape the range of their weapons. But Commander Jake, the captain of the Nighthawk, had made up his mind. He had read the reports about attacks on human colonies. He had seen the footage of settlements burning under dragon fire. He believed that every was a potential enemy. When he saw approaching his ship, he saw only danger. The Nighthawk's guns fired again and again, twisted and turned, trying to avoid the shots. But he was built for long-distance flight, not combat maneuvers. Another bolt struck his left wing, tearing through the membrane and cracking one of the main support bones. A third hit his shoulder, burning through his scales and into the muscle beneath. Pain exploded through his body. He could no longer control his flight. He tumbled through space, spinning helplessly as his damaged wings failed to catch the solar winds. Below him, he saw a small moon, a barren ball of rock orbiting a gas giant. He had no choice. He angled his fall toward it, hoping the thin atmosphere would slow him enough to survive the crash. The moon's gravity pulled him down faster and faster. He spread his wings as much as he could, ignoring the agony that shot through the torn membranes. The ground rushed up to meet him. He hit hard, skidding across rough stone that scraped his belly and tore more of his scales away. He rolled 3 times before coming to a stop against a boulder. For a long moment lay still, every part of his body screamed with pain. His left wing was bent at an angle that should not be possible. His right wing had a hole the size of a shuttle through its center. Blood, dark blue and thick, pooled beneath him. He tried to stand, but his legs would not support his weight. He dragged himself across the rocky ground using his front claws. Each movement was torture. He spotted a cave entrance carved into a nearby cliff face. It took him almost an hour to reach it. He pulled himself inside and collapsed in the darkness. The cave was cold and smelled of minerals, curled his body around his damaged wings, trying to protect them from further harm. He knew he was dying. The wounds were too severe. Even if the bleeding stopped, infection would set in. And he was alone on this dead moon with no way to call for help. He thought about his home world, with its floating mountains and forests that glowed in the dark. He thought about his sister, who led their war parties against those who threatened their people. She would be angry when she learned how he died. She would want revenge against the humans. Had seen enough of humans to know what they were capable of. He had watched them strip mine entire asteroids, leaving nothing but dust. He had seen their prison ships, carrying members of other species to work camps. He had witnessed their cruelty firsthand when they killed his nestmates. Not once had a human shown him kindness. Not once had they tried to communicate before attacking. Not once had they treated him as anything other than a monster or a resource to be exploited. They were a plague on the galaxy, spreading destruction wherever they went. He closed his eyes and tried to control his breathing. The pain was getting worse. His blood continued to seep out onto the cave floor. He wondered if dying would hurt or if he would simply fall asleep and never wake up. Outside the cave, the stars continued to shine. The Nighthawk remained in orbit, its sensors tracking the life sign that grew weaker by the hour. Commander stared at the readings on his screen. He felt uneasy about what he had done. The dragon had tried to communicate. Maybe it had not been attacking. Maybe he had made a terrible mistake. But orders were orders. They were classified as hostile. Engagement was authorized in neutral zones. He had followed protocol. He tried to tell himself that as he ordered his crew to prepare a reconnaissance team. In the cave below, breathing grew shallow. He believed he would die alone, hated the shuttle touched down on the moon's surface with a soft hiss of landing jets. Lieutenant Danny Hayes checked his rifle one more time before standing up from his seat. He looked at the 3 other members of his team. Corporal Lisa sat across from him, her medical kit secured to her back. Sergeant Blake was already at the door, his heavy weapon ready. Private Amy Torres finished setting up the communication relay that would keep them connected to the Nighthawk. Danny had his orders: find the creature, confirm it was dead or finish the job, retrieve any useful biological samples, return to the ship. Simple and clean. He did not like hunting wounded animals, but Commander had been clear. They could not be allowed to report this encounter to their people. It could start a war. The team stepped out onto the barren surface. The moon had barely any atmosphere, just enough to create a faint whistle of wind across the rocks. Their suits provided oxygen and pressure. Danny activated his scanner and picked up the trail immediately. Blue blood, still fresh, leading toward a cliff face about half a mile away. They followed the trail in silence. Lisa watched the blood spatters on the ground and felt sick. She had joined the military to help people, not to kill them. But she had also seen the footage from the colony attacks. She had watched burn human settlements from orbit. She knew they were dangerous. Still, tracking a wounded creature to finish it off felt wrong. The blood trail led them to a cave entrance. The opening was large enough to fit a small ship. Danny signaled for the team to spread out, took position on the right with his weapon raised. Amy stayed back to maintain communications. Lisa moved up beside Danny, her scanner reading life signs from deep inside the cave. They entered slowly, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness. The cave stretched back about 200 feet. At the far end, they found him. Was massive, even curled up in pain. His body was easily 40 feet long from nose to tail. His wings, damaged and broken, wrapped around him like torn blankets. His scales caught their lights and reflected them back in shifting patterns of color. His eyes, large and intelligent, watched them approach. Danny raised his rifle. This was what they had come to do. One shot to the head would end it quickly. But he hesitated. The creature was not moving to attack. It was not even trying to defend itself. It just watched them with those eyes that held too much understanding. Moved up beside him. "Let me take the shot, sir. No point in waiting." Lisa pushed past both of them. She had seen enough wounds in her career to recognize the severity of what this creature had suffered. The wing bones were shattered. The membranes were torn beyond what should be survivable. The shoulder wound was deep and already showing signs of infection. This was a being in agony. "Wait," she said. Danny turned to her. "Corporal, step back, that's an order." Lisa ignored him. She approached slowly, her hands visible and empty. She had removed her rifle and left it with Amy. She knew this was against every protocol they had. She knew Danny could charge her with insubordination. She did not care. Watch the small human come closer. He tried to summon the energy to threaten her, to make her afraid. He opened his mouth and showed his fangs, each one as long as her forearm. He raised the spines along his neck, but the effort cost him dearly. Pain shot through his body and he slumped back down. The human stopped just outside his reach. She was so small compared to him, he could crush her with one claw if he had the strength. But she did not run, she did not shoot. She did something he had never seen a human do before. She removed her helmet. Lisa's dark hair fell around her shoulders as she pulled the helmet off. The thin atmosphere made it hard to breathe, but she could manage for a few minutes. She wanted him to see her face. She wanted him to know she was not hiding behind armor and weapons. "My name is Lisa," she said, knowing he probably could not understand her words, but hoping her tone would communicate what she meant. "I want to help you." Heard the sounds she made. His translator organ picked up the patterns and began to decode them. He understood the concept she was trying to express, but it made no sense. Humans did not help. Humans killed them or captured them or drove them away. This had to be a trick. He tried to speak, to tell her to leave him alone, to let him die in peace. But all that came out was a low rumble of pain. His body was failing. He could feel it shutting down system by system. Lisa saw him trying to communicate. She activated her own translator device, a small unit on her suit collar. It would take a few minutes to learn his language patterns, but it was the best they had. She knelt down on the cave floor, putting herself at eye level with his massive head. "I know you've been hurt," she said. "I know you're in pain. I'm a medic. I can help with the pain and stop the infection. Please let me try." The translator device worked faster than she expected. Heard her words in a form he could understand. Help, medic, pain. The concepts were clear, but why would she offer this? What did she want in return? Danny's voice came from behind her. "Get back here now. We have our orders." Lisa looked back at her commanding officer. "Sir, this is a sentient being. We can't just execute it." "It's a hostile alien that attacked our ship," Danny replied. "It didn't attack us," Lisa said. "The commander fired first. I read the report. This creature was trying to communicate." Stepped forward, his weapon still aimed at. "Even if that's true, we can't just leave it here. If its people find it and learn we did this, they'll retaliate." "Then we should make sure they learn the truth," Lisa said. "That we tried to help, not finish what we started." Amy's voice came over their communicators. "Guys, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. Multiple signatures heading this way. They'll be here in less than an hour." Danny swore under his breath. The situation had just become more complicated. If they found them here with their wounded comrade, they would assume the worst. But if they left now, the creature would die anyway, and they would still blame humans. Lisa made her choice before Danny could issue new orders. She moved closer to and reached out her hand. Her fingers touched the torn edge of his left wing, the membrane that was still bleeding slowly. Her touch was gentle, careful not to cause more pain. Felt the contact and froze. A human was touching him, not hitting him, not cutting him, not taking samples, just touching with care, with something that felt almost like concern. He could kill her so easily. One movement of his tail could break her body. One snap of his jaws could end her life. But he did not move. He stared at her hand on his wing and felt something break inside his chest. It was not a physical breaking. It was the breaking of a belief he had held for so long. The belief that all humans were the same. The belief that none of them could ever care about anything except themselves. Lisa felt him relax slightly under her touch. She looked into his eyes and saw intelligence there, and pain, and something else. Confusion, maybe, or hope. She smiled even though she knew he might not understand the gesture. "I'm going to help you," she said again. "I promise." Danny watched the scene and felt his certainty crumble. He had been so sure about what needed to be done. Now he was not sure of anything. He lowered his rifle. "How long do you need?" he asked Lisa. She looked back at him with surprise and gratitude. "At least 30 minutes to stabilize him. Longer if we want to actually treat the wounds properly." "You have 20, Danny said. "Then those ships arrive and we're in real trouble." Lisa nodded and opened her medical kit. She began pulling out supplies. Her hands, moving with Lisa, worked quickly but carefully. She cleaned the wound on shoulder first, using antiseptic spray to kill any bacteria that might have entered. The creature flinched when the spray touched raw flesh, but he did not pull away. She could feel him watching her every movement, trying to understand what she was doing. The shoulder wound was deep but clean. The plasma bolt had burned through scale and muscle, but had missed any major arteries. Lisa packed it with medical foam that would prevent infection and help the tissue regenerate. Then she sealed it with synthetic skin, a clear membrane that would protect it while it healed. The wings were worse. The membranes were torn in multiple places, and the supporting bones in the left wing had cracked under the stress of the crash. Lisa had treated broken bones before, but never on a creature this size. She did what she could, using splints from her kit to stabilize the bones and surgical adhesive to close the worst of the tears. Kept watch at the cave entrance, his eyes on the scanner that showed the approaching ships. 15 minutes, they're coming in fast. Lisa nodded but did not stop working. She moved to the smaller wounds, the scrapes and burns that covered Spotty. Each one got cleaned and treated. She talked while she worked, keeping her voice calm and steady. I had a brother, she said, not sure if could understand her through the translator yet, but needing to talk anyway. He was on a colony world when they attacked it. He was only 19. He died in the first wave. His translator had learned enough of her language now to understand the words. He heard the pain in her voice. She had lost family to his people, yet she was helping him. It made no sense. I hated your kind for a long time after that, Lisa continued. I wanted revenge. I wanted to hurt every I saw, but my mother told me something before she died. She said that hate only grows more hate. She said that if we want things to change, someone has to choose differently. She finished sealing a wound on his side and sat back on her heels. Her hands were covered in blue blood and her medical supplies were almost gone, but his breathing had steadied. The worst of the bleeding had stopped. So I'm choosing differently, Lisa said, meeting his eyes. I'm choosing to see you as a person, not as the enemy who killed my brother. Tried to speak. His vocal organs were designed for space, not for use in atmosphere, but he managed to produce sounds. The translator converted them to words Lisa could understand. Why, his voice was rough like rocks grinding together. Why help me? Lisa smiled sadly. Because you're hurt and I can help, it's that simple. Your brother said, I am sorry. The words surprised even him. He had never apologized to a human before. He had never thought they deserved apologies. But looking at Lisa, seeing the grief in her eyes and the kindness in her actions, he found that he meant it. Lisa felt tears form but blinked them back. Thank you, she said quietly. That means more than you know. Danny's voice cut through the moment. We have a problem. Commander is ordering us back to the ship immediately. The vessels are sending out combat drones. Lisa stood up and walked to where Danny stood. She could see the worry on his face through his helmet visor. How long do we have? Maybe 10 minutes before those drones reach us, Danny said. The commander wants us on the shuttle now. He's preparing to jump to FTL if things go bad. We can't move him, Lisa said. He's too injured. The trip to the shuttle would kill him. Then we leave him, said from his position. We did what we could. We stabilized him. His people will find him and finish treating him. Lisa looked back at. The massive creature was watching them, clearly understanding that something had changed. His eyes held fear now, not of them, but for them. He knew his people were coming. He knew what they would do to humans they found near a wounded. You must go, said his rough voice carrying across the cave. They will kill you if they find you here. Not if they see that we helped you, Lisa said. Shook his head, a gesture he had learned from watching humans. They will not care. They will see only humans near their fallen warrior. You must leave now. Amy's voice came over the communication channel, high with stress. Multiple signatures breaking atmosphere, 6 heavy combat forms and 3 smaller scouts. They're heading straight for us. Danny grabbed Lisa's arm. We're out of time, we need to go now. Lisa pulled her arm free. She looked at Danny with determination that he had never seen in her before. I'm staying. That's suicide, said. Maybe, Lisa agreed. But if I leave, what message does that send? That humans only help when it's convenient, that we run away when things get hard. This isn't about messages, Danny said. This is about survival. No, Lisa said. This is about changing things. If they see me here helping one of their own, maybe it will make them think twice about us. Maybe it will open a door that's been closed for too long. Pulled himself up on his front legs, ignoring the pain the movement caused. Human, Lisa, you do not understand. My sister leads this war party. She lost her mate to human pirates. She will not listen. She will not see reason. She will kill you before you can speak. Then I'll die trying to make things better, Lisa said simply. Danny stared at her for a long moment. He thought about his orders, about protocol, about everything he had been trained to do. Then he thought about what it meant to be a soldier, to protect people, to make hard choices, to sometimes disobey orders because it was the right thing to do. He made his decision. Amy, get to the shuttle, get back to the Nighthawk and tell the commander what's happening here. Started to protest. Sir, we can't just leave you. That's an order, Sergeant, Danny said firmly. Someone needs to report this. Someone needs to make sure Earth knows what is trying to do here. hesitated, then nodded. He and Amy moved toward the cave entrance. Before they left, set down his extra ammunition and our emergency beacon. If you need extraction, trigger this. We'll come for you. They disappeared into the thin air outside. Lisa heard the shuttle engines fire up a minute later. She was alone now except for Danny and... "You didn't have to stay," she said to her commanding officer. Danny checked his rifle and took position near the cave entrance where he could see the approaching ships. "Yes, I did. You're my responsibility. Besides, someone needs to watch your back when you try to make peace with angry dragons." Lisa managed a small laugh despite the situation. She returned to side and continued treating his wounds, even though she knew they would arrive before she finished. Watched her work and felt emotions he had never experienced before. This human, this small, fragile being, was risking her life for him. She had chosen to stay when she could have fled to safety. She believed in something bigger than her own survival. "I do not understand your species," he said quietly. Lisa looked up at him. "Most of the time, we don't understand ourselves. We're capable of terrible things, but we're also capable of this, of choosing hope over hate." The ground began to shake. Through the cave entrance, they could see massive forms descending from the sky. They had arrived. 3 of them landed near the cave, their wings creating whirlwinds of dust and stone. They were even larger than, their scales darker and thicker with age. The largest one stepped into the cave entrance, blocking out most of the light. Her eyes glowed with fury. She saw her brother wounded and bleeding, and she saw 2 humans standing over him. Her roar shook the walls of the cave. Called out weakly, "Sister, wait, listen to me." But was beyond listening. She saw only enemies and rage. She drew in a deep breath, her throat glowing with building fire. She was going to burn them alive. Lisa stepped forward, placing herself between the angry and... She spread her arms wide, making herself as visible as possible. She knew it was hopeless. She knew that fire would kill her in seconds. But she did not move, roared with every bit of strength left in his wounded body. The sound echoed through the cave like thunder, drowning out Evan's rage. His sister stopped, the fire dying in her throat as she stared at him in shock. "Do not harm her," commanded, his voice weak but clear. "She saved my life." His eyes narrowed. "I see humans standing over your broken body, brother. I see your blood on their hands. What else am I to think?" "The blood is there because she healed me," said. He struggled to lift his head higher to make his sister see the truth. "The humans from the ship shot me down. I was dying. This one, Lisa, she chose to help me when she could have let me die." 2 more entered the cave behind. They were warriors, their scales from many battles. They looked at Lisa and Danny with hatred that needed no translation. One of them spoke in their rumbling language. "They lie, war leader. Humans always lie. We should burn them and be done with it." Lisa understood none of the words, but she understood the tone. She kept her arms spread, her body between and his sister. Danny moved up beside her, his rifle lowered but ready. He knew they could not win a fight against 3 full-grown, but he would not let Lisa face them alone. Studied the scene more carefully now. She saw the medical supplies scattered on the cave floor. She saw the sealed wounds on her brother's body, the work too precise to be caused by weapons. She saw that he was breathing easier than he should be with such injuries. And she saw the way he looked at the human female, not with hate, but with something else. "Explain," she said, her voice still dangerous but no longer preparing to kill. Told her everything. He described the encounter with the Nighthawk, the attack that he had not expected, the crash that should have killed him. He told her about Lisa removing her helmet, about her gentle touch on his broken wings, about the care she had shown when she had every reason to hate him. "She lost her brother to our kind," said, "yet she chose to heal me instead of seeking revenge." Looked at Lisa with new eyes. The human was small and fragile, nothing compared to a warrior. Yet she stood firm, unafraid, protecting a being that most of her people would call a monster. It reminded of something from the old stories, tales of honor and courage that transcended species. Lisa's translator finally caught up with the conversation. She heard next words clearly. "Why would you do this? What do you gain?" Lisa lowered her arms slowly. She looked up at the massive creature that could end her life with a single breath. "I gain nothing except the knowledge that I did the right thing. Your brother was hurt. I'm a medic. I help people who are hurt. It doesn't matter what species they are." "We are not people to you," one of the other growled. "We are enemies. Your kind has made that clear." "Some of my kind, yes," Lisa agreed. just like some of your kind have attacked our colonies, but I don't believe that all are the same, just like all humans aren't the same." She took a step forward, ignoring Danny's warning hand on her shoulder. "I know you've lost people you loved to humans, told me about his nestmates, and I told him about my brother. We've both been hurt by this war. But if we keep killing each other, when does it stop? When are there enough dead on both sides?" Felt something stir in her chest, an old pain that she had buried under rage and duty. Her mate had been killed by human pirates 3 years ago. They had ambushed his patrol ship and torn it apart for scrap metal. She had sworn that day to make every human pay for his death. But this human was not a pirate. She was a healer. She had risked her life to save when leaving him would have been easier and safer, had spent 3 years believing that all humans were cruel and selfish. This small act of kindness challenged everything she thought she knew. "You speak well," said slowly. "But words are easy. Actions show truth. You helped my brother. That is one action. It does not erase what your people have done to mine." "You're right," Lisa said. "One action doesn't fix everything, but it's a start. And if we don't start somewhere, nothing will ever change." The warrior who had spoken before moved closer, his massive claws scraping the stone floor. "War leader, we waste time. The human ship is still in orbit. They may attack at any moment. We should secure our brother and eliminate the threat." Danny raised his rifle at that. "You try to eliminate us, you'll find we're not easy to kill." Looked at the human male, seeing the determination in his stance. He would fight, even knowing he would lose. He would die protecting his comrade. That too was honorable in its way. "Lower your weapon, human," she said. "I have not decided to kill you yet." "Yet," Danny repeated, "that's not very comforting." "It is more comfort than most humans would give us," replied. She made a decision then, one that would change the course of history even though she did not know it yet. "I will bring you both to our home world. You will speak before the council. They will decide what to do with you." Lisa felt relief flood through her. It was not freedom, but it was better than death. "Thank you." "Do not thank me," said. "Half the council will vote to execute you. The other half will want to study you, which may be worse. But you have earned the right to speak, and my brother believes you deserve a chance. I will honor his judgment." Looked at his sister with gratitude. He had not been sure she would listen. Had become hard over the years, turned bitter by loss. But the sister he remembered, the one who had taught him to fly when he was young, was still there beneath the armor of anger. "What about the Nighthawk?" Danny asked. "They're expecting us back." Gestured to one of her warriors. "Send a message to the human ship. Tell them their people are alive and will be returned safely if they do not follow us. If they attack, their crew members will die." The warrior moved to comply. Danny activated his communication unit and spoke quickly to Commander. The conversation was tense but agreed to stand down. He had no choice. 2 lives against a ship full of crew was not a trade he could make. Lisa knelt beside one more time. "I need to finish treating your wounds before we move you. The trip will be hard on your body." Rumbled in agreement. Watched as Lisa worked, seeing the care the human took with each movement. She saw her brother relax under Lisa's touch, trusting her completely. It was strange to see. Had never trusted easily, especially not after what happened to their nestmates. As Lisa sealed the last wound, she spoke quietly so only could hear. "I'm scared." "I am also scared," admitted. "The council is old and set in their ways. They may not listen." "Then we'll make them listen," Lisa said with more confidence than she felt. "We'll show them that things can be different." Ship landed outside the cave an hour later. It was enormous, built to carry multiple across vast distances. Lisa and Danny were brought aboard and placed in a holding chamber. It was not quite a cell, but it was clear they were not free to move around. The chamber had transparent walls that let them see out into the main cargo bay. They watched, as was carefully loaded onto a medical platform. Personally supervised his care, making sure his wounded wings were properly supported. "Do you think we'll survive this?" Danny asked as the ship's engines powered up. Lisa looked out at the stars beyond the transparent hull. "I don't know, but I think we had to try. Someone had to take the first step." "You took the first step," Danny corrected. "I just followed because I'm apparently terrible at following orders." Lisa smiled. "Thank you for that, for staying with me." "We're a team," Danny said simply. "Teams stick together." The ship jumped to faster than light speed, leaving the moon and the Nighthawk behind. They traveled for 3 days through dimensions that human science barely understood. During that time, visited their chamber several times. She asked questions about human culture, about their military, about their reasons for expanding into neutral space. Lisa answered honestly, hiding nothing. She talked about Earth's growing population and the need for resources. She talked about the fear that drove military decisions, the same fear that drove the... She talked about the misunderstandings that had led to violence on both sides. Listened and said little, but Lisa could see her thinking, processing, questioning beliefs she had held for years. It was a start. On the third day they arrived at, Lisa pressed against the transparent wall and stared at the planet below. It was beautiful beyond words. Mountains floated in the sky, held aloft by some force she did not understand. Forests glowed with bioluminescent light that painted the night side in shades of blue and green. Cities built of crystal caught the sun and threw rainbows across the clouds. "It's amazing," she whispered. Stood beside her, looking at her home world with eyes that held both pride and sorrow. The council chamber was carved from a single massive crystal that grew from the planet's core. Light passed through it in ways that seemed impossible, creating patterns that shifted and changed with the time of day. 12 ancients sat in a circle, their scales dulled with age but their eyes still sharp and intelligent. They had lived for hundreds of years each, had seen empires rise and fall, had guided their people through wars and peace. Lisa stood in the center of the circle with Danny beside her. She felt very small, surrounded by beings so large and old. Guards stood at every entrance, their weapons ready in case the humans tried anything. Had taken her place among the council members, her expression unreadable. The eldest counselor, unnamed, spoke first. Her voice was like wind through ancient trees, soft but carrying immense weight. "You are the first human to ever stand in this chamber. You are here because you helped one of our own when you had no reason to do so. Speak, and we will listen." Lisa took a deep breath. She had practiced what she wanted to say during the journey, but now that the moment had come, the words felt inadequate. She decided to speak from her heart instead of trying to sound diplomatic. "Thank you for letting me speak," she began. "I know many of you have lost people you loved to my kind. I've read the reports. I know about the mining colonies that destroyed nesting grounds. I know about the hunters who killed your young for profit. I know about the military encounters that ended in death on both sides." She paused, meeting the eyes of each council member in turn. "I'm not here to make excuses for what humans have done. We've made terrible mistakes. We've been cruel and greedy and short-sighted. But I'm here to tell you that we can be more than our worst actions." One of the counselors, a warrior named, growled low in his throat. "Pretty words, but words do not bring back the dead. Words do not heal the wounds your people have inflicted on ours." "You're right," Lisa agreed. "Words alone aren't enough. That's why I acted. When I found dying in that cave, I had a choice. I could have followed orders and killed him. I could have walked away and let him die, or I could try to save him." "One act of mercy does not redeem your entire species," another counselor said. "No, it doesn't," Lisa said. "But it proves that mercy is possible. It proves that we can choose differently. Every war, every cycle of violence continues because both sides believe the other side is incapable of change. But I'm standing here as proof that humans can change, that we can see past our fear and anger and make a different choice." Leaned forward slightly. "Why should we believe this change is real? How do we know this is not simply a trick to gain our trust before you attack?" Lisa spread her hands. "I have no proof except my actions. I put myself at risk to help someone I was supposed to see as an enemy. Lieutenant Hayes here stayed with me even though it meant disobeying orders and risking his career. We're here now at your mercy because we believe that peace is possible." She felt emotion rising in her chest and did not try to stop it. "I lost my brother to an attack. He was 19 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. I hated your kind for what happened to him. I dreamed about revenge." Tears formed in her eyes. "But my mother told me something before she died. She said that hate only grows more hate. She said that someone has to be brave enough to choose differently, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. So I'm choosing to honor my brother's memory not with more violence, but by trying to build something better." The chamber was silent. Several of the counselors looked uncomfortable, as if her display of emotion had affected them in ways they did not expect. Stared at Lisa with an expression that might have been respect. Spoke again, his voice less angry than before. "You speak of your brother with pain. I too have lost family to humans. My daughter was killed by human pirates. They destroyed her ship and left no survivors. How can I trust your kind when I know what they are capable of? Lisa met his eyes. I can't make you trust humans. Trust has to be earned. But I can ask you to consider this. The pirates who killed your daughter, were they acting for all of humanity, or were they criminals that most humans would condemn? Was quiet for a moment. They were criminals. We tracked them for months before we found them. They had attacked ships from many species, not just ours. And the who attacked my brother's colony, Lisa said. Were they acting for your entire species? Answered that question. No, they were outcasts, exiled from our world for their crimes. We do not condone attacks on civilian populations. Then we've both been judging entire species by the actions of the worst individuals, Lisa said. We've let the criminals and extremists define how we see each other, and that has led to more death, more pain, more families destroyed on both sides. She turned slowly, addressing the entire council. I'm not asking you to forget what humans have done. I'm not asking you to ignore your pain. I'm asking you to consider that maybe, just maybe, there's a better way forward than endless war. Another counselor, younger than the others but still ancient by human standards, spoke up. What you propose would require trust that has been broken many times. Why should we take that risk? Before Lisa could answer, the chamber doors opened. Entered, moving slowly on the medical platform that supported his still healing body. His wings were splinted and wrapped in bandages, but he held his head high. He moved to stand beside Lisa, his massive form dwarfing her. I will tell you why, said, his voice stronger than it had been in the cave. Because I was ready to die believing that all humans were evil. I had seen my nestmates killed. I had witnessed human cruelty firsthand. I believed there was no hope for peace between our kinds. He looked down at Lisa with what could only be described as affection. Then this small, fragile being chose to save my life. She had every reason to hate me. Her brother died at the claws of our kind. Yet she set aside her pain and her fear and chose compassion. If she can do that, if she can choose mercy when revenge would be easier, then perhaps there is hope for all of us. Regarded both of them carefully. You have given us much to consider, but there is a prophecy from our ancient texts. It speaks of a time when the sky children would touch the wings of fire, and from pain would come peace. Many have debated what this means. Some say it refers to a great war. Others believe it speaks of a fundamental change in how species interact. She rose from her seat, a gesture that made the other counselors lean forward with interest. I believe this human has fulfilled that prophecy. She touched your broken wings, and from that pain she is trying to build peace. That is worthy of respect. You would trust them? Asked, though his tone suggested he was more curious than opposed. I would give them a chance to prove themselves, said. Not blind trust, but careful cooperation. We will propose peace talks with the human government. We will send this human back to her people as our ambassador of goodwill, along with who will speak for us. Stood as well. I support this decision. I came here prepared to demand war, but I have watched this human care for my brother. I have spoken with her about her people and their fears. She is right that we have both been judging entire species by the actions of criminals and outcasts. One by one, the other counselors added their support. Not all of them were enthusiastic, but none voted against the proposal. The decision was made. They would pursue peace with humanity, with Lisa and serving as the bridge between their peoples. 3 weeks later, Lisa stood on a neutral station at the border between human and space. Commander was there, along with a delegation from Earth government. On the other side of the docking bay led a diplomatic team, and between them, Lisa and waited together. The negotiations took months. There were setbacks and arguments and moments when it seemed like the whole effort would collapse. But every time tensions rose too high, someone would look at Lisa and standing together and remember that change was possible. 6 months after that first meeting in the cave, the treaty was signed. It was not perfect. It did not erase all the pain and mistrust, but it was a beginning. Trade agreements were established. Communication protocols were standardized. Joint patrols were organized to hunt down the pirates and criminals who had caused so much suffering. Lisa was promoted to diplomatic liaison, a new position created specifically for her. She worked alongside, traveling between human and territories, solving disputes before they could become violence. She learned to fly, strapped into a specially designed harness on back, soaring through space on the wings she had helped heal. Danny was promoted as well, put in charge of the joint human security forces. He and formed an unlikely friendship, bonding over their shared experience of choosing trust over fear. 1 year after the treaty was signed, Lisa stood on a platform overlooking the neutral zone they now patrolled together. His wings had healed completely, stronger than before thanks to biosynthetic grafts developed by human and scientists working in cooperation. The scars remained, visible reminders of where he had been shot down, but they no longer caused him pain. "Do you ever regret it?" asked, "choosing to help me that day?" Lisa rested her hand on his wing, the gesture familiar and comfortable now. "Not for a second, you." "I regret only that I did not see the possibility of peace sooner," said. "I wasted years in hatred when I could have been building bridges." "We both did," Lisa said, "but we're building them now, that's what matters." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Ships passed by, both human and traveling freely through space that had once been a battlefield. Not everyone was happy with the peace. There were still extremists on both sides who wanted to return to war, but they were a minority now and shrinking every day. "Thank you," said quietly. "For what?" "For touching my broken wings, for showing me that not all humans are the same, for choosing hope when hate would have been easier." Lisa smiled and leaned against his massive side. "Thank you for letting me help, for giving humanity a chance to prove we can be better." In the distance, a new patrol group flew past. 2 humans and 2 working together, protecting the peace that had seemed impossible just a year before. Lisa watched them and felt pride swell in her chest. One small choice in a cave on a barren moon, one decision to help instead of harm, one act of compassion that changed everything. That was all it had taken to start building a better future. The wounded dragon had thought humans only harmed him, but one touched his broken wings with kindness, and nothing was ever the same again. "Is worth protecting, that is why we fight." "I understand," Lisa said. "We feel the same about Earth." Perhaps that is something we have in common after all." The ship began its descent, and Lisa prepared herself for whatever came next. "Please," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "Let me explain." Fire built in her throat, ready to be released, and Lisa waited to die, hoping that her sacrifice would mean something. Efficiency watched her work and wondered if he was dreaming, if this was some hallucination brought on by blood loss and pain. But the touch of her hands was real, the supplies she used were real, and slowly, impossibly, the pain began to lessen as she cleaned his wounds and sealed them with surgical gel. A human was saving his life. A human cared whether he lived or died. Nothing would ever be the same. And forgotten. He believed that no human would ever care about his suffering. He believed that his kind and theirs could never be anything but enemies. He did not know that everything he believed was about to change.